having that trust, like you said, not just that someone's going to do their job, but I think as a leader, but also just as a team member, creating an environment for people on your small team, on your larger team, your family, that they can say something though and be heard, and not, I'm not going to just react or act on it. And people sometimes, like in it sounds like, in your case, they may not have known, like, well, I don't know how he's going to react to that. I don't want to say any, like you said, I don't want to rock the boat. Whatever, it's kind of their fear of the unknown. So setting a tone, and like you have, of, okay, so we did discover something when someone told me about it, and we handled it, and we move on, and it's for the better of everyone.
Welcome to Winning Strategies Playbook, the podcast where we welcome business leaders, CEOs, and industry experts to discuss the rise to the top, building wealth, and real estate insights. Here's your host, Jeremy Spann.
Welcome to Winning Strategies Playbook. For more information on this show, you can go to our website, myexperiencedrealtor.com. That's experience with an ED. And you can click on podcast, scroll down to this episode, other episodes, download from all the different platforms, read more, find out about the person that we have on the show. And of course, if you're looking to buy and sell real estate anywhere on the planet, you can go to the homepage, click Find a Trusted Professional. But today we are not here to talk about real estate as usual. We have my friend, Traci Larrison. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Oh man, I'm not gonna lie to you. This is number 11 in 3 days. Gage, what was I thinking doing this many? What was I thinking?
We've done 11?
We've done 11 already.
That's big
So
time.
I got my sound engineer over
popular.
here, who's also an extrovert. Just kidding. And so anyhow, so Traci, we start all these off with a joke. My father-in-law, when I started the show, said we got to do a joke. So I do bad jokes intentionally. So this is not meant to be funny, but if you do laugh, then it means I accidentally Googled the right joke. All right. And I thought this one would be kind of fitting, because Gage knows this about me, is when life gives you melons, you might be dyslexic.
Good. Okay.
Not that funny. So I had the pleasure of hearing quite a bit about Traci, and then finally last week meeting Traci face-to-face. At the first time we got to have our face-to-face board meeting for TCU, since it's all been on Zoom and everything else since the pandemic. And for those of y'all that have seen my friend coming here before, Kevin Davis, the first episode he did is he was still at TCU. Second episode he had left TCU. And now Traci's not just doing his old job, she's doing multiple jobs. They were like, hey, let's see how many plates you can spin at once. So Traci, tell us what you're doing there at TCU for the audience.
So my formal title is Director of Recruiting and Admission for the Executive MBA program and the Working Professionals Graduate program. So our part-time MBA and online MBA. But really, as you said, multiple plates, multi-level, helping with all the graduate programs. So TCU graduate programs has different specialties. So we're really, we have a fairly new team there across the board, and are really re-energizing that entire program. And so I'm kind of the newest addition, leading those parts, but recruiting students for those programs is my primary charge.
Well, and I got to say this about the board meeting, and I told Suzanne, I said, I thought that was a really, really good meeting. I've spent the last couple of years trying to roll off every board I could, even my own foundation that I had started back in 2013, just because, I'm at that different stage of my life, right? I'm tired of being on boards, I really don't, really, this is totally selfish. This has become an inconvenience for me to try to participate in things. I've had a long year doing a lot, and just really kind of wanted to, spend more time in Colorado, more time traveling and whatnot. And, and what I didn't tell Suzanne was this, is I kind of intended on attending this board meeting, because it was the first face-to-face one we've had since prior to the pandemic, to kind of say, hey, I think I'm ready to roll off this thing. And instead, I thought it went so well. I thought it was put together so well, having the other folks that were in there talking about what they do, campus engagement, the career service, all that, and understanding a little bit more of the parts. that I thought there was so much value that came out of that meeting. It was so much more efficient, so much more put together, and this will really crack the audience up. They really had scheduled, we were ahead in the meeting because, you know, when they usually get around and go, hey, everybody, you know, tell what class you're in, who you are, what you do. Well, they had made a lot of times they expected me to talk a lot as usual, and I was just like, hey, I'm Spann. I was out of the 2014 class. And yeah, I got a lot of irons in the fire, but I'm good. And Kim, who was in my class, was sitting next to me. And she was like, that's it? Like, since when did you stop talking so much? So we were actually ahead of schedule. But I got so much value out of that meeting that I walked out of there just feeling re-energized, like, hey, you know, I think I'll stick this out and do this a little bit longer.
Good.
And just so you know, because, you know, I've been a main pipeline source of sending y'all some candidates, is that even if it did happen down the road that I would roll off, don't worry, I still want to send people there. It's just more of, you know, the timing of being in town to do it. So your board and one other that I do for Texas Parks and Wildlife are the only two boards that I'm just left on. Right. And so that's like a thing in Tarrant County, too. It's like you get on like 50 boards and then after a while you start to roll off. Right.
Yes. Yeah. And I've done the same thing. So, and I understand your debate there, but so we appreciate you being on there for sure. And to hear you say the value and that re-energized by that meeting, by the board members, by our plans and kind of going forward, that's really exciting because we feel that way. We're excited. New team, new ideas. The student engagement part is huge. Really excited about that for our current students and future students and alumni. We'll be doing more alumni things. So the whole point of getting your EMBA or working professional EMBA is not just the class and that 18 months or 2 years that you're in here, but your network and your lifelong experience and value out of it. So that's good that you are still getting value out of your involvement.
Man, and I tell you, what was really interesting is not only did you know, pick the hottest time to come flying into the fire,
Right.
but at the same time, there's a lot of changes and evolving and different things that are happening, right? So you're literally, like when you said when we first walked in here, drinking from a fire hose.
But
right now.
Yeah, my experience before has been similar. There's like you said, there's not really a dead time in the cycle. You're always prospecting for new students, but there are a lot of changes that have gone through in the department, a lot of new people. But we're looking forward to that, kind of creating a new team and bringing a lot of new ideas together, which will bring, you know, value to the whole program. So it's exciting for me. I don't look at that as a negative at all in a new role, especially there. Neeley has such a strong foundation, and they're so supportive of all, you know, new ideas and things like that. They never want to stay stagnant or, you know, keep doing things the way, you know, just they have been just for the sake of that. They want to be innovative. They want to be progressive, and I'm excited to be a part of that.
What did you think about that deal that was right after the board meeting with, what was her name? I'm trying to remember. It was
Alicia.
Labate. Yeah.
Yes. So I had heard of her, Futurist.
Yeah.
That's her name.
Yeah.
I liked her, you know, very theoretical and you know, forward thinking and throw some crazy ideas out there and see how you can respond and adapt. I think that's a good exercise for all of us in whatever business or personal. And obviously it's translated really well to a lot of, you know, Fortune 500 companies, very successful companies, to at least do the exercise and think that way. So I thought it was interesting. It definitely, Suzanne Carter, Dr. Suzanne Carter, who's the executive director of the Executive MBA program, as you know, but new to me, we were sitting with each other and literally coming from our board meeting, from our internal meetings, and the things that we're thinking about were literally the core 3 ideas about connecting and your network and, you know, adapting. And so we felt really validated that this, you know, amazing, you know, person that had come in for the innovation series, that we were thinking and strategizing like her. So that was really exciting to hear. But she's very inspiring, I thought. What did you think?
Oh, so I am huge into futurists.
Yeah,
I'm a big follower of George
too.
Friedman.
Oh, yeah.
I read his daily deal that he sends out. I've read all of his books. He had one called The Storm Before the Calm that I kid you not, he probably had a spike in sales because I bet you I bought 50 of those books and sent them out to people that I was like, hey, read this. I just want to get your take on, you know, what he's talking about through the book, you know, and where he thinks, you know, why what's going on is going on right now and what it's going to look like over the next couple of years. So I was really fascinated by that. And because I'm especially with this show, this show's really targeted for high performers and intellectuals, right? Not just the CEO of some publicly traded company. I mean, people that are high performers and intellectuals that's how we solve these things, right? And I was fascinated how she opened up with, in 2016, she's there in Las Vegas. They bring this driverless semi. She's like, wow, this is cool. And then it's like, well, what do we do when all the semi drivers don't have a job? I mean, it's a lot of people, right? And then the things she was talking about, right, were things that I've been thinking about for years of like, what do you do when people become non-essential? Now, I think the first time people heard truly what non-essential meant was in March of 2020, right?
Yeah, right.
And then, people are like, oh, I'm not essential, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, what do you do when computers and robots change things, right? And it's not the first time we've seen that happen, right? I mean, ask Detroit, right?
Right.
Robots and machines and things like this, printing press.
Sure.
All these little things, they add up, and you either got to be ahead of it, which even then you're just on time, or you're on it, you're already too late, or you're behind it and you're way too late to the game, right? Yep. And so I thought that was interesting. And then to follow it up, going into Michael Sherrod's presentation right afterwards. I've had Michael on the show, known Michael a long time, so I'm always fascinated by what he has to say. And a lot of takeaways out of there, because I think you went to his afterwards,
yes,
right?
I did, yeah.
And so when he brought that video out about the backwards bicycle and mindset, I've literally been sending that to all my folks.
Yeah, I've never seen that before. All my viewing stuff and circulation, never seen that.
I'd seen it before. I can't remember when and where it was. I'd kind of forgotten about it. But to be able to tie that to mindset, which was really kind of the big takeaway that I got, not only from our board meeting, which is like, hey, we got to change our mindset on how we're doing this moving forward. Then we're in there, and she's talking about mindset moving forward. He's talking about mindset moving forward. I thought, man, and this is something that all my folks that I have businesses with are tired of hearing me say mindset.
It's very conceptual. Sounds conceptual. Like,
it does.
How do we translate? What does that mean? What's the actionable thing there?
Right, because without execution in mindset, it's just mindset.
Right. And that's something that only that person can, like the bicycle example. You can't change someone's mindset. I mean, there's training, I'm sure, and exercises. But it's ultimately up to him. He kept trying, kept practicing, and kept doing it. And that's what I took out of it was it's going to be, I think, so different for each person. Like if you're on a team and we are changing a mindset to something new, it's probably going to be a different journey for one person that, may not be as adaptive, or like in the video, the wiring of the younger person changed quicker than the wiring of the older person of the same type of task. So that's really interesting to me, leading teams, meeting people, especially in my role where, we're putting them in a high performing program and, not going through their program, but then also, my team. I just thought it was real eye-opening on how we work with each other.
Yeah. And, and it is, not just to be in a high performing program, but to learn how to perform better, or as, TCU's MBA tagline is, classroom Friday, Saturday, ROI on Monday. Right, and executing that performance, and it is hard on that mindset. For my mindset to change is a very easy thing for me to do. Very good at mindset change, not very good at execution. My wife, business partner, very good at execution, not very good at mindset change. But one of the things the reason I would say she's actually, as a business partner and as a spouse and the mother of our child, is a lot in a better position than I am, is because she's always been in execution. I'm still not very good at execution. I'm good at finding other people to execute for me is what I am. Or as my wife would say, you're just good at manipulating people into execution for you.
That's called delegating.
Yeah, that's what I said. Manipulation just sounds like a bad word,
That's right, yeah.
And,
it's all PR.
But she has changed her mindset about my ideas. So she's adapted to go, hey, I've now seen a history. I rode that backwards bicycle so many times that if you say, hey, this is what I want to do. This is why it's going to work, and this is how it's going to work. Now let me give it to you so you can put pencil to paper to take it from a thought process to actual executable process, right? And so that's why I think she's further advanced from me, because she's been able to adapt to my fast changing mindset, but my ability to adapt to execution is, as a matter of fact, this is kind of a funny thing. So my EO forum, we went down to Key West, Florida for our annual retreat, and we all did the Strengths Finder.
Yes.
Right?
I've done that.
And which was really funny, because two of the bottom ones for me were harmony and empathy, which I was like, yeah, no kidding, right? But anyhow, they fall into 4 categories, which was execution, influence, strategy, and I don't remember what the other one was, but what I do remember is the one out of all my top 10 strengths, right? So they would highlight these categories if your top 10 strengths were in this category. None of my top 10 strengths were inside execution. Yeah. Not a one.
Yeah.
But see, there's nothing wrong with that, in my opinion, right? If you know you're not good at something, then you
right.
find people that are good at it, right?
Yeah.
And that's where I'm really excited to see your take as, because you're kind of coming in mid-swing, right? You got one class that's finishing up. You've got one that's, they're coming out of finance, so that just totally sucks, right? They don't like anybody.
Yeah.
And as many of them as I put in there, they say a lot of bad things about me
They're
right
calling
now.
you, yeah.
How did you talk me into this? But is your ability to come in and look at, hey, how do we make people perform better? And I want to come back to that, but I think it's important for the audience to understand your history and journey to become a performer yourself. So where did all this start for you? Give us kind of the timeline that got you to where you're at today.
Sure. So I'm the oldest of 5. And I attribute it to that now. I have very driven parents who both worked full time and put us all in a role of autonomy, responsibility, that kind of delegating, like you're saying, that you're responsible for this, you're responsible for this. As a parent now, I'm so appreciative of it. Back then, it just was chaos. Everyone was running around doing their own thing, and we had a great upbringing. But I now, and especially the past 10 years in my leadership roles, I've really appreciated those kind of subliminal teachings that my parents gave me. So when I went to college, went to Texas Tech. We won't say that too loud around the TCU fans.
No, it's all right.
But went into school for business and communication. I love communicating. I was political science back then too. I didn't really know exactly what area I wanted to go into. But started there, and when I got out of school, I went right into media, and I was in sports media on the marketing side. But the more I was around the sales team and the business development team, I realized I really liked that. I really liked the kind of going out and finding people who were going to support the show, sponsors, donors, or business development for the business overall. So my background is all sales, and it comes from working on small sales teams or starting at the bottom. Where it's just me. I'm on a sales team. I'm part of a sales team that's 20 people. I think the first role that I had, I was the newest, youngest on a 20-plus, very seasoned team in Dallas. So super intimidating, but I learned a lot.
So what would you say made it intimidating?
I had way less experience, right? I was brand new, didn't know what I didn't know, and that intimidated me. I wanted to sit in the room. I just didn't have enough knowledge. And so for me personally, I want to better understand any situation that I'm in. If I have, the more information I have, I feel more confident. So that, intimidating was probably, right out of school.
Yeah.
Just not knowing what you don't know. But I'm a sponge. I love to ask questions and sit and observe. And being in that environment, I stuck that out because I knew I'm gonna learn a lot from these people that have been here. So my whole career has been all different sports, media things, but always in sales. and then managing teams in that type of environment. So when you're talking about, learning from each other and high performance, always having a goal to reach, but also, and you mentioned this earlier, creating teams, being on team, being a part of a team, and understanding what my role is. Because, like you said, there's executors, there's influencers, there's the different best thing, whatever they bring, that's what they bring to the table, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like their expertise, their skills. And I think a lot of people in teams that I've been on kind of miss the mark of, they'll just give people things to do without understanding that's what they're best at, or that's what they're good at, or want to do.
Why do you think that happens?
I just think they're, like you mentioned, not open-minded. They don't either want to spend the time to really get to know their team, and I think that's very intentional, like something, people just don't. They've maybe come up in an environment where that was never done for them, so they just do the same thing and expect kind of the same results. But, one of the highest things we see is, management complaints, right? And I think we talked about this in the board meeting and in some specific industries, but they don't have any training. People are getting promoted that don't have team training, like how to be on a team, because they've been siloed, and maybe especially the past few years, but they've been brought up in different environments and all of a sudden are given a team. So I always don't want to just blame that person either, because they may have not had any training, they may have not been brought up on or taught how to be on a team, how to treat others on your team, and get the best from everyone.
Yeah, and I think it was 70-something% of workers would pass up a pay raise to see their immediate boss fired.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right? And because there is a difference between leadership and management.
That's right.
And like for me, like I'm a third executive coach now, right? So I got my first experience at TCU and had Tony for 2 years. And it was funny because I remember when Tony said, man, when it comes to leadership, you forgot more than what you're going to learn.
Right.
And he goes, but when it comes to being a manager, you're horrible. You're horrible. You don't even like to manage. You don't even want to manage. And he wasn't wrong.
Yeah.
Right? But it took somebody going, hey, you're not really a fit for that role, because if you're going to be kind of going back to execution, is if you're going to be an effective manager, you need to be able to be effective at execution. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean by executing just like firing people, stuff like that. Sure. But you need to be able to execute. And so that was very important. Or I can't remember what the percentage of people he said that would rather have a robot for a boss.
Yes.
Right? And that is interesting because, we do live in a complex employment world right now where there's all these changes that are coming. Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, so when you were on that team and you said that, you get there, you're new, you don't know what you don't know, and you're intimidated, how long did it take you to get past that intimidation, would you say?
I would say I was in that role 2 years. And so the intimidation with that group, maybe 7 or 8 months,
Okay.
within the first year. I had, and I think this is a great point for teams, I had some great mentors in that group that kind of organically I matched up with. They weren't intentional about that, but it just organically happened, and that was very important because then that just built that confidence. I could ask questions that, I may not have wanted to ask, someone else in the group. And I think that happens with anybody that's new to your team. They need someone that they can, a safe space to ask some questions where they don't feel like they're going to, be judged or something like that. But I would say 7 or 8 months in that first scenario, because it was a pretty big learning curve.
Yeah.
Right out of school. But they did great. They did a great job. I had some great people on that team that really, saw something in me they wanted, and we're still friends to this day, like still colleagues. So
wow.
It's great.
No, I think you're absolutely right on the nail there is, making sure you've got mentors or people that, that you can be an outlet, right? So, is, probably one of the challenges that I run into with, all my different businesses and business partners and people that work with us for us, so forth, is, you haven't known me very long, but you probably make an assumption I'm a very strong personality, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, look, you got to communicate with me. You got to tell me you're not going to hurt my feelings.
That's right.
You know, like even on Monday evening, I found out something with one of my folks, and I was like, who is one of my closest friends. I've known forever. And I was like, dude,
Yeah.
why are you waiting till now to tell me? He's like, man, you got so much on your plate, blah, blah. And I was like, you know, it becomes worse. Matter of fact, even when I was driving to the doctor this morning, because I had two, on my way to the first one, I was like, man, you got to talk to me. You got to tell me what's going on. I think I've shown over and over I'm willing to pivot and demonstrate that I can make whatever adjustments need to make, and I can do it very effectively and quickly, but I can't if I don't know. And that's why we have a saying that I've really been beating like a drum the last couple of weeks is, if you see something,
Yes.
say something,
Yes. Yeah.
right? Because if you don't tell me that it's broken, I have to go off the assumption that it's working fine.
Right.
Right. And so that's that. So I think you're absolutely right on point there. And but something that and I didn't think about this until you said this is your experience of working on teams really does translate to what you're doing now, because a huge emphasis on the executive MBA program at TCU is teams, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of, and you know this from being through it, but at that level, people may not have worked. They may have worked in one team in one sector of the company, right? And worked on the same team for a long time. But if they are moving up and now are going to be the CEO, CFO, or start their own business, they have to know how to organically nurture, grow a team from the beginning. And a lot of people don't, like we were talking about, don't have that experience. They come into one that's established, and here's how we do things. And that might work. But at this level for executive MBA, especially these, again, performers and doing all kinds of things, pivoting, starting their own business, going into the C-suite, that's going to be a different kind of team leadership for sure.
Yeah, and it absolutely is. And I know I learned a lot from it. I mean, I've been on some pretty effective teams myself, from my time in the Marines to, now.
Yes,
and it is, and even I had some learning opportunities through it, right? Like on my first team, they waited till this, what I call the spear peer evals, right, at the end, where I was like, why did y'all wait till after, because I don't know if y'all are doing it the same way now. We were on 3 teams as we went through.
Yes.
My first team waited till after we were done to tell me what I was doing wrong. I was like, why didn't you tell me during time? And I'm not faulting. It's not dig. I love those folks. And so but what I did is when I opened it up and going into my second team, I said, hey, these are the things I identify with me. If you see something, say something.
Right.
Right? Because I can adjust, I can fix, I can do what I need to do. And it's hard because you got executive level A playing personalities in there, right?
Right.
And you just can't go in there and be like, all right, we're going to do laps till y'all figure this out, right? Yeah. And so do you put much thought into, kind of how all that's going to play out here, currently kind of stepping into this role and doing that?
With my team or with the
with the teams
MBA?
in the program?
Yeah, I'm excited to see. I'm excited to learn more about that and how, like you said, how they're doing it now. I do like that they rotate them during the program so that you are forced to kind of be, and they intentionally place you with different personalities and different things like that. Again, to get the value of, learning how to deal with different personalities and how the skill set of each team and what that experience is, and to have that peer-to-peer evaluation, not just from that same group the entire time, but other people. And so I'm excited to see how it goes.
So you being on teams, and this is totally open-ended landmine to throw out there, right?
Bring it on.
Is you could say that in order to have an effective team, it's got to have all these different ingredients, right? In your mind, what do you think is the most essential ingredient that you have to manifest within a team in order for it to be a truly effective team? I totally did not prepare you for that question.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I would say trust, because you can communicate and say, I guess we're going to say communication, things like that, or skill sets or whatever that might be. But if you can't trust the other people to, like you're saying, be open with the community, that they are being open and saying, hey, Jeremy, you need to pivot this way, or trust them to do their part of the job or the project or, responsibilities. So, and I say that coming from experience with mine, because I've been on some teams where we had some great people, and I knew there were people I can't trust them that they're going to do what they're going to say they're going to do.
So that's frustrating,
that provides
right?
That's just a flat tire. I mean,
Yeah.
we're going nowhere if we have a flat tire, and then everybody else has to pick up, and it's just the overall culture of your team, whether it's small or big. If there's that you can't trust, it's gonna be hard to overcome that.
What would you say are some common coping mechanisms when you're on a team, a large team, and let's say 80% of people are doing what they're supposed to and 20% are not? In your experience, what have you seen as some coping mechanisms? Because you're right, it's like driving a car with a flat tire, but you still got to drive the car, right?
Right.
You still got to get it point A to point B. What would you say are some coping mechanisms that, whether they be positive or whether they be negative, that you commonly see out of teams?
So there's always the venting, right? Because people will vent about that individual that's not doing what they're supposed to, so you'll get that. Coping mechanism, if you mean by that, like, how do we adjust for that, or how does the rest of the team deal with it? Negatively, like I said, it just creates that kind of gossipy, they're not doing what they're supposed to, I'm having to make up for that, which, no one wants to feel that way about their job anyway, or the team they're on. But then I've had the experience where when there are multiple people kind of recognizing that, it helped a little bit in moving the effort up to change it, for someone to notice and say, okay, well, 2 or 3 of you are experiencing this same kind of, issue. They're not doing what they're supposed to, or there's a slack here in the rope. Then we get it fixed. It's a little bit louder group. So I think that communication about it was important, because at least it eventually got fixed.
Yeah, you said two important things. By the way, you said my favorite word, which is trust, right? I mean, that's I don't think you can do anything in life without trust. It's kind of like when and anybody that knows me knows I am totally, you hear this as being cliche. This is truly not cliche if you know me, is when people go, you do not deserve your wife, right? She is a saint. She is an incredible human being. This is not one of those cliche things. And I'm like, it's like literally, because my friends remind me, like, you out of all people, how did you get that lucky, right? And so when people go, what makes us, because it's hard to be not just spouses, and you're co-parenting, and you're co-business owners, right? I mean, that's you're never away from it. That's 24/7, right?
Yeah, you're not gonna get away from it.
And let me tell you, love, that 4-letter word, sometimes not powerful enough, right? And passion and all this other stuff. Trust, right?
Right.
Trust in relationships. My wife can trust that if she says, I need this done, I'll go do it.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Yeah.
She can also, good, bad, or indifferent, trust, oh, wow, you're going out with who tonight? Yeah, you better make sure you Uber, because I can trust that you're going to be an idiot tonight. You're going to drink more than you should have, right? And then I get the reel it in, Spann, is what she likes to say. And then it's like, hey, we need to talk about these recent behaviors. And I'm like, yeah. But that trust is so important because, one, if you have leadership within the team, right? And it doesn't always have to be the team leader,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
It can be an opinion leader that comes in and says, hey, there's 20 of us and you 4, you're 20% or whatever, I'm just picking them out, random numbers, are not doing your part to carry the load. We either need you to do it, or we need you to leave, or we need you to figure out what the workaround is that you can be able to go do this.
Right.
I had that recent example happen. It was, again, one of my people did not tell me that they were absolutely miserable for the last 6 months. When you
There's
see
usually
something,
a cause. Yeah.
I'm going to
When
make a
you see
tag.
something-
I'm going to make a
Now
tagline out of this. When you see something, say something.
Yeah.
And so I'll never forget, we were sitting there, and there's 4 of us in the room. We'll call the 4th person not necessarily a moderator, but a coach. And I'm sitting there the whole time like, how long has this been going on? And he goes, 6 months. Mm-hmm. I said, dude, you've been miserable for 6 months? I thought you've been happy for the last 6 months. He said, no.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, all right, here's, we're gonna get a plan together, and we did, and we very quickly pivoted, right? Because then the fear that hit me that next morning is when we were having an all-team meeting. As I looked at Laura and I said, if he's this miserable and he hasn't said anything, and everybody else in the house has been quiet as a church house mouse.
Right.
My fear is there's a lot of uncomfortable going on right now that nobody has said anything. And and it's kind of funny. It's a blessing and a curse, right? On the part is our people are so incredibly loyal that they're willing to eat fire and not say anything because they just don't want to cause any disruption. Not because they're afraid of conflict. Trust me, I know this team ain't afraid to say something, but they just didn't want to cause a disruption with what we were doing. But the curse of that is because they weren't saying anything. As a matter of fact, so I'm going to come to this book on the other thing you said, right? So you got to have that person that steps up and says, hey, time to get on board, get a workaround, or get the hell out because, we're falling behind because you're not being a team player. And then you have things that create toxic environments, right? And I think that not one of us humans out there have not been guilty of this at least once, which is gossip.
Oh, for sure.
Even if you weren't the gossip starter or the gossip receiver listening to it, but the person that heard the gossip going on and never said anything, right? Is that becomes very, very toxic because then what happens is these assumptions and beliefs, right, start to align based on the assumptions, right?
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, so I got that, and that's a book. I'm on my 3rd time of reading this that was given to me by my friend Don Williams. Amazing man, been on my show a couple times. Entrepreneur, coach, public speaker. I mean, just God, everything he does is just great. As a matter of fact, that's who I was talking to on the phone right before we started. But he gave me this book called The 15 Traits of Being a Conscious Leader, right, or Conscious Leadership. But I'm on 3rd time, and I'm underlining things and 2 key takeaways. And I've had a lot of takeaways out of this book. 2 key takeaways are you got to end gossip. And the way to end gossip, though, is you have to make it where, like you were saying, it's like being in a trusted environment where somebody can say, hey, we need to talk about this. Right? Because if not, it turns to gossip. Or a part that I read in the book that I thought was pretty impactful is that when you withhold, that's worse than lying.
Right. Yeah.
Right? And
I agree with that.
Yeah, and that's a tough one, right?
To digest, yeah, for sure. Having that trust, like you said, not just that someone's going to do their job, but I think as a leader, but also just as a team member, creating an environment for people on your small team, on your larger team, your family, that they can say something though, and be heard, and not. I'm not going to just react or act on it, and people sometimes, like in it sounds like, in your case, they may not have known, like, well, I don't know how he's going to react to that, I don't want to say any, like you said, I don't want to rock the boat, whatever, it's kind of their fear of the unknown. So setting a tone, and like you have, of, okay, so we did discover something when someone told me about it, and we handled it, and we move on, and it's for the better of everyone. Creating that kind of safe space for someone to be honest, like, I'm not happy, I want to be do something different, or this isn't the right team for me, is part of building that trust, right? I can trust that I can tell someone on my team or my leader that I need to be doing something differently, or I don't feel like I'm contributing. That's part of that trust too, not from the beginning. Or if you're coming into a team where you do see some toxic stuff going on, or the wheels falling off, right, on the back rear tire, then something's going on. So start the conversation. Say, there's some things going on. If there's something in your space or your area ever, come to me, or go to your team leader, or, go to someone that you feel comfortable with, so we can do something about it. I worked for a company that did a great job of this with new hires. They had their trainer, the person and their boss, but then they had a random person not associated with their team in the company that was their safe space to go, no, really, like, how's it going? How are you feeling? I'm not reporting this to anyone. You can just ask me the stuff that you don't want to ask them, or, things like that. And I thought that was really helpful. It showed that they really intentionally, cared about the person, and gave them an outlet to kind of have conversations that they might have felt uncomfortable with to their boss or trainer, in the first 6 months.
So I want to throw out, I have a habit of throwing out landmines. And one of the rules we have on the show is if you want to sidestep this landmine, we can cut it. We can cut this little segment out, right? That's a good thing about having an experienced production team here. Gage over there, because trust me, they spend more time cutting out the dumb things I say. Because let me start it off with saying this. I grew up with a very strong mother. I have a very strong wife, and I have a very strong 21-year-old daughter, right?
Same.
So I'm very pro-woman, okay? But one of the things that I believe is becoming safer for women to feel that they could speak openly about in today's day and age is that it was boys' world for a long time. Mm-hmm. And competing in that world, right, is what is that like to be? And you're like, okay, yeah, I want to go play in a game, but man, this seems like boys' club over here. Again, if you say, hey, we can cut it, I'll cut it. And if you go, no, I'm more than happy to talk about that, right?
No, well, I don't feel that way about the TCU where I am now. I have worked in the sports world since I was 20 and definitely started out like that. And that was in 1998, 99, and was definitely like that. But I will say there are different parts in different roles where, and even when I was younger, those roles in that sports kind of boys club, if you will, it was all men. The women were like PR or marketing or assistants. They weren't in the sales, role, like a high level sales role. But I was like, well, that's what I want to do. Or I saw one and the rest of the team were men. But I will say I was in some very supportive, encouraging environments, as well as some not great ones during that time. I mean, it's sports. It's evolved really well. At TCU, and I worked at TCU in athletics before I worked here at the Neeley School, have always felt really supported. I do not feel like every athletic director, coach, assistant, whoever, administrative, marketing, everyone has been. That is a very healthy culture for females to work in.
That's great.
Which is why I went back.
Yeah. So now, all right. So let's. So when you say you went back, so your time between TCU athletics, you went somewhere else before you came back to TCU, right?
Yeah, yes. Before to the Neeley School.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Where'd you go there?
I was, for a brief period of time at a company called Complex Sports that was working with Rob Gronkowski and his brothers. They have businesses. When he retired, started some businesses, and so I was doing business development and working for him and his family. And then when COVID happened, it basically shut down all of the events they were doing. And so I came back to a local company here that was in healthcare for higher ed. It's called Timely MD. Amazing story. You should interview their CEO and their founders. Have really transformed the healthcare space during COVID. They do virtual health for colleges and universities, so only serve college students. So I went there and was working with all of their college partners, about 30 college partners, to bring this program to campus. So leading a team of marketing, administration, the care teams, to basically bring that platform to the college. They'd never had anything like this before, so introducing it to them, recruiting students to get involved and engaged on campus.
So, and I really do. I come back, kick a dead horse here, right? I'm good at doing that, as my daughter will say. Is, you know, because I am intrigued. I'm always trying to understand perspectives more, and especially since, you know, my daughter is 21 now, right? And so she is, you know, she's still figuring things out at college. And that's why she goes, is she going to college? Well, she's at college. Yeah. And she's figuring stuff out, which is fine, right? I mean, I'm the, probably the only
during that time,
I mean, she's actually thanked me on multiple occasions. She's like, you're the only one not up my butt right now on stuff. And I was like, well, I dropped out of high school at 17. You know, I don't know what to say, you know.
What am I going to say?
What am I going to say? But I'm always trying to learn more of a perspective so that way I can be a better guidance. Because like when my daughter, like she's going through a roommate issue right now.
Oh, yeah.
And so usually all she does is text me, and I've talked to her on the phone 3 times this week, right? Yeah. But when she calls me, which I feel really, really honored that she calls me and asks me for advice on stuff, right? But I like to do it very much kind of like EO does, you know, very Gestalt experience share, you know, hey, here are some options I've seen, and these are not all the options out there. Right? But I know that she is going to, she's gonna have to fight for some things more just because she's female, not male, growing up, right?
Sure.
I mean, it's a reality. I mean, people can be like, it's not fair, it's not that. Yeah, I'm not arguing that fact. I'm just saying the reality of it's out there, right? And so, in your experience of being in those boys club type things, what are some of the things you did? And there's no wrong answers here. It's like, hey, I did this to cope with it till I no longer had to cope with it. Or I did this, or I was like, I'm going to do this right till I can really show them what time it is, right? Does that question make sense?
I think so. Being in those situations, I do remember I'm big on timing is everything. And, you know, it's kind of, is chess, is forward thinking, thinking ahead, you know, to your plays. Like chess players will say, like, they know they have the whole game, you know, mapped out based on who they're playing, and they know exactly what their strategies are depending on the moves. So for me, I think at a very young age, and like I said, those experiences being around a lot of powerful power players at a young age that were very successful in watching, I learned about the timing and kind of when to, you know, hey, here's when I can insert myself and make a big influence and make a big impact. I don't need to do it every single meeting. I don't need to, you know, give my, you know, what I would do in every situation. And when you're in, you know, been on executive teams and, you know, where, again, we all have ideas, we all have comments, we want to, you know, comment about everything that's going on in our team or our company. But I really learned, okay, you know, to do a lot more listening. And then wherever the problem solving was, to come in with some solutions, like really well thought out things versus just my comments and, oh, that's a good idea, or we should do this. But really timing out where I can make, you know, the biggest influence with either with my team or individually, what, you know, whatever that solution might have been. But probably timing is the best answer, and just, you know, being patient. I'm very assertive person and very audacious and very, I mean, like I said, I'm the oldest of 5. If I go into a room and everyone's talking about the problem, I want to fix it. And I'll say, okay, let's hold on. You do this, you do this, you do this. And I've kind of had to learn to rein that in, because on the teams that I've been on, there may not have been someone like me. But if there is someone like me, then it's like, oh, well, wait, okay, well, you do it, that's fine. Or they're indecisive, or then it makes me indecisive. So I had to learn how to, you know, work, let people do what they're going to do. And again, on the timing, like, okay, here's what I can bring, or I'll tackle this part, you tackle that part, and this team or that team, you know, whatever that might have been. But yeah, timing and well thought out, you know, not again, as a female, to back around your question, coping mechanism, maybe just, you know, not really coping, but just learning on timing. And again, I've been on teams where, it hasn't been real supported. If I have an idea or something, and I've gotten shot down many times. And I mean, I'm in sales. I've been doing that forever. So no doesn't mean anything to me anymore. Doesn't mean anything to me anymore. But I learned from that. There's no, it just means no for today maybe. And then, a lot of times it would just say, okay, I need to rethink that and then go represent it another time to get it done. So, but it's when you are a very strong-headed type A, I want to, I have a goal to get something done. As a young person, it is like learning, and it's dependent on the environment. You may have an environment where it's really supportive and they're going to listen to everything you say, but probably not all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to teach my 20-year-old son right now, like how to, be proactive. Like, what's the worst they could say? No. And, but he's at that age where, well, I don't know. I don't think he's sending out resumes and CVs and stuff like that. I'm like, just what's the worst? At the end of the day, you can say, well, I sent it to them and they turned me down. They passed on me 5 years ago and look where I am. Yeah. So, trying to teach that is difficult.
Well, if you figure out the secret sauce to it, let me know, please.
Right.
And
I'll monetize that quickly.
Right. You're like, well, I had to say bye to TCU. I got my own national series on how to make your 20-year-old do what you want and
understand your perspective.
Oh man, you're not kidding. And I really honed in on what you said is instead of coming to the problem with just gossip and complaints is coming to the problem with solution or solutions, that are well thought out, right?
Yeah, you don't have to have an answer right then to impress anyone.
No.
In fact, if you listen more and then maybe ask questions, like I take a lot of notes. I'm a voracious note taker. And then, like at the board meeting, so much great information. And I had some quick idea solutions right there, but that's reactive. Right, to one thing I've heard about that. So really holistically, and especially what I'm doing right now as a new person, is to look at, there's a lot of different layers to that team, to any project that people are working on. So just make sure I, am really understanding each of those kind of cogs in the wheel so that we're going to go forward efficiently.
So I'm listening to you say being the new person is, in my opinion, I think it's better suited just to say the different person because you're not new to any of this, right? Maybe the widget's new, right? For sure. But I mean, we're 30, 45 minutes into this, and I'm sitting here going, "Wow, you've got a plethora of experience that can translate, right? Because sometimes you have folks that are they're so out to prove themselves that you want to go, hey, look, I get it. Maybe you're female and you're playing in boys club here and you're trying to be out there to prove yourself. You might make it further if you just dial it back a little bit. Or somebody that has the potential and needs to be more assertive, like, hey, you can do it. You're going to have to assert it. So it's like, so on my real estate team, Spann Group, right? James and I are the only males. Right? Mm-hmm. And so when we were having our team meeting last week and we were going through things, so this is the follow-up meeting to going, hey, what's, whatever, right, we're going to change. You're going to do this. You're going to do that after listening because you said you don't like doing this. You said you like doing this, and all that, making it better. And one of the things that James and I were trying to make the point of, because we've got one newer person on the team, who's got a lot of experience in sales, came from medical sales, down to, my wife, who's married to me long before we were doing business together, to Michelle and Lynn, is I said, look, James is like me in the sense of if you see something, say something, just be direct, right? You're not going to hurt our feelings. Remember, I got empathy and harmony at the bottom of mine. You're not going to, right? I mean, like they go, well, I just didn't want to, like, look, trust me, you have no idea how much I've been MF'd in things over my time period. There's nothing you're going to say, but to be more direct at times, but also to know when to dial it back. Like, that's what I had to learn when I was going through the program, right? It's because, and it wasn't because I was trying to prove something. I'm just all gas pedal all the time.
Sure.
And I got Rob Rhodes going, hey, man, you can do great, but you're going to have to dial back. Kevin Davis, too, was like, man, hey, look, you're going to do great, but I'm not saying you got to hit the brake pedal. Just let off that gas pedal a little bit, right? In the performance of anybody. But yeah, I think that's such a key point, and especially in this program. And everybody that's listened to the show knows how much I'm a fan of TCU's executive MBA. I've changed everything for me, right?
That's awesome.
And the thing is I learned more from people who were not like me and did not look like me.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right? And to the example, Christy Thomas, and I love her, right? So when we got to our 13, and she and I were the two biggest personalities, and they were like, man, I don't know if we should let them be on the same team. And Kevin Davis had said, he goes, nah, I think Spann's learned enough. I think she's learned enough. And it was the great ultimate test, right? Mm-hmm. And we did. And we just built this bond that was just incredible. And, because I do think that the talent pool for potential candidates to do TCU's executive MBA program needs to feel like, hey, wait a minute. I got people that are going to be in this program that are not like me and do not look like me. Mm-hmm. And I can get in here and rub elbows with them and get down in the trenches and do things together.
Yeah. Well, that's right? One of the big values is that's right. We don't want, we put you in a room with people that are just like you, or then what value are you getting out of that? I mean, that's one of the core, is to mix that's why we mix the groups up during it. And when we're curating our cohort, this is an elite group of people. It's only 25 to 30 out of, many, many applications. I mean, it's a curated thing. And that is for your value as a student. I mean, if we just let whoever, in and at what point and what time, I mean, it wouldn't, that decreases the value. So it's a very intentional program because of that, so that, you get the value of that diversity of ideas and people and backgrounds and industries. You're going to learn so much. Just like you said, the one thing I've heard more from alums is that they learned more from the people, and it certainly the curriculum has taken them to the next level, right? They understand and know more than they ever did, but they learned so much more about the people and themselves as a leader.
Yeah. And so early on, and it's another little question, I'm just going to keep firing them off like cannons, right? What are you already identifying as challenges in your role to recruit? Just not you specifically, but we're in a different world now than we were 12 months ago, 24 months ago, 36 months ago, right? Mm-hmm. What are some of the challenges that you're already seeing, and you're like, hey, I'm going to have to block and tackle on this stuff because these are just the reality of some challenges.
Yeah. Probably the biggest one is that, like you said, they're already, especially now, maybe a little more last year, but we still have people who are in the middle, in an undecided stage themselves. I think it's easier, well, not easier, but what I've heard from alums so far, to make this kind of big transformative decision to enter this program, when you felt a little more established. And some of those people are just still coming out of that. So they're just a little, might be what I perceive to be might be, but then I have a few who are like, oh, it's a transformative time. I'm ready. This is the time to, go back and spend the time to be in the EMBA program. So that's potentially one challenge, is just getting them to make a decision when it's maybe a little bit of an unknown time, either where they're coming from or where they've been, to focus on something different. The other, and I think we talked about this at the board meeting, North Texas is like 7 million people. I mean, huge. It's just getting the word out. I mean, we're a very small elite program. There's plenty of people here. So challenge for me is just getting the word out so that we do have, continue to have a highly selective program of the best students and best cohorts.
So it's really funny. You said this, and I kind of already got it follow up on this is there a right or wrong time to come do this program? That's a question that I've even asked myself for a long time. Like I was supposed to be in the 2013 class.
Okay.
But I was coming out of an undercover role and in the middle of, because here's 2013 class means I would need to start in 2012, right? And I had a lot of different things going on in 2012 when I was still at the PD that it was like, this is not right time for me. It's like I'm in the middle of making a transition over here where I can't be there on Fridays and Saturdays because I'm not allotted to be there on Fridays and Saturdays, where I therefore had to wait till the next class so I could be in a position that would give me that every other Friday, Saturday off to be able to attend a class, right? So I'm not talking about a timing per se, but a timing of, should I be, is this the right time? Should I do it now? Should I do it later? Is there a right or wrong time, you think?
I don't think so. I don't think it's right or wrong. It's so subjective for each person. I mean, I guess there could be for each individual one, but across the board, if somebody said, does this feel like a good time to you? I mean, again, that's really subjective. It depends on what's going on. But I would say, and this, the Executive MBA program, as you know, we do want the right time. 3 years out of college, not the right time for Executive MBA. Other programs, yes. Professional MBA, please come to call me. Working MBA, things like that. But for the Executive MBA program, there is a right time in the sense that this program is for 10 to 15 years experience, manager level, director level that want to either pivot into a different industry. Be entrepreneurs. Now I've got all this experience at these companies and what I've done, but I want to start my own thing. And we have a prospect I was talking to yesterday. That's exactly what he's doing. He's like, I've worked for an amazing company, nothing wrong with them, but I'm going to start my own thing now. So I need to know how to start a company and run a company. And so that would be the right or wrong. There's definitely, parameters that we want in that cohort that have that types of experience, not just for them, but to bring to the table for the other students. So
this is the reason I'm sitting here smiling is because asking all these questions, trying to learn more about you myself, right? And it seems like one of the strengths that you have had leading through challenging teams, maybe challenging environments was, and you really put a lot of emphasis on this, was timing, right? Yeah. And so being able to connect with someone who's a potential prospect on timing and what that means. So because I do think that there's a lot of folks out there, and this has been a running challenge since the program started 20 years ago, right? Well, is the right time? Is it the right timing? And being able to have a professional like yourself be able to break down what does timing mean more further than just the cliche of saying, well, timing. Does that make sense? Yeah, certainly. So that's a strength.
One of the quotes that I've recently heard is, it's already later than you think. And a futurist, right? She had a quote the other day, but this was from a movie, ironically, and I thought that's exactly right. She kept saying, the future is now, it's already happened. But the one I heard in the movie, it's already later than you think. I always use the one, time is a thief. So when someone asks me, I'm going to wait or whatever, and I said, well, time is a thief. It's going to steal all that from you tomorrow, right now. So all your time is passing. So, but I'm an optimist, again, futurist, like, why wait, right? Just like I was telling my son, like, what's the regret? Like, at least just do it, right? Do or do not. There is no try. Right. But it's already later than you think. So to answer, when I'm talking to prospects for EMBA, especially at that level, like, it's already later than you think. Like, why not, right? And it might be a very, technical issue or scheduling or something. Okay, well, let's work around that. Let's figure it out. It might not be your time in August, maybe, this time. But let's get a plan together so that you can next August, right? That just comes with planning and management, just like you would do anything else, a big vacation, time off for your kids, things like that. So, but as far as, the transformative change, changed my life. I've worked in sports. I've worked in so many different industries. When I was talking to the Neeley School, and I talked to 2 alums before I accepted the role, and I've never heard someone talk about a program and say it changed my life in the business realm. Never. And so when I heard that, I'm like, okay, this is special. For these people to say that, who were at a very high level already, and spent their time and invested their time and money and effort, and they would do it all over again. That was impactful for me. So
yeah, I can remember when I was doing my initial interviews, right, and I'd interviewed with Rob Rhodes, and again, this is this is back in 2012 because I was going to do the 13 class. Actually, it was 2011. It was actually 2011, I think. Yeah, it was 2011, and it was funny. I remember sitting in his office, because I was there to be on the fast track to keep going up through the PD, and it's no small feat. 12th largest police department in the United States. And a lot of growth in the city, and he just looked at me and he said, "You're not going to be in your career by the time you get through this."
Wow.
And I was like, "What?" And I was like, "Chief call you and tell you, yeah, sign him up. I'm getting fired." Right. Like, what?
Yeah, we need him.
Yeah, and then it did, because it opened my eyes to doors that I did not. Well, there was always this burning entrepreneur desire inside of me, that it was just it was like, well, when Ken Stevens and I were sitting there, kind of going forward, it was having access, understanding how these things work. I mean, it's a technique. Now that I know that, and then it's like, hey, sky's the limit now, right?
That's right.
And then like one of my, when you were talking about your son, and I tell my daughter this all the time. I probably tell everybody all the time. I'm really good at repeating myself.
Yeah, me too.
Oh man, like James, who just graduated from the program last year. He goes, "Dude, I used to think you're really witty," and he goes, "You're so unoriginal. You literally say the same thing over and over. You just find new people to say it to, so it seems all new and witty."
I have started saying, "Have I told you this yet?"
Have I told you?
To at least give them fair warning. Have I already told you this?
Have I already told you
or
this?
Or I probably told you this, so I'm a softball, right? Like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure you.
Well, like when you said, you were like, "What's the worst they could say is no?" Is I tell my daughter all the time, the answer is no 100% of the time if you don't ask.
Well, right.
Right? Or you miss, what is it? You miss 100% of the shots you never take, right? That was what, Michael Jordan?
Yeah, and my son's an athlete. Like, he knows, right? Like, he plays baseball, the worst statistical sport ever.
Yeah.
I'm like, just go for it.
Yeah, just take a swing.
Yes,
right?
that's right.
You never know. You might get lucky sometimes, right? Which I really don't believe that. No, I do believe there's luck. There's a lot of luck that's been involved in my life. I've been very fortunate to be the right person at the right place at the right time my entire life. Or as my buddy Ricky, who's been on the show here, he said, "Man, you're like Forrest Gump, man." He goes, "And if you didn't have anybody to verify your story, nobody would believe. They would think you're a fictional character, right?" Is that you've got to put it out there, right? You got to just go for it. And I mean, what's the worst that happens? Right. Yeah. Our friend Michael Sherritt, for example.
Yeah.
When he started the program, he had to leave, and then a couple years later came back and finished the program, right? Maybe it was a year, maybe it was 2 years. I can't remember what it was that he told me. But, but he at least got it started. But he knew he had seen enough that he was like, I know I need to come back and get some more of this, right? And that's that's pretty powerful. So he said so talking about right and wrong time. You also said getting the word out on the program, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we live in a world of a lot of white noise, a lot of static, a lot of distractions, a lot of things where you might miss it if you weren't looking for it. So what are some things you're thinking about of overcoming those challenges?
Yeah. Well, our alumni network, obviously, but even the EMBA program's been around 20 years. But again, we only have a very small class intentionally. That's about 500 people. We're having our 20th anniversary this year. So 20 years of, successful programs. But that's a very small portion, right? And even those networks, I mean, we know how viral things work. Even if that, they all posted something tomorrow, it's just a very small thing. But I have lived in Fort Worth my whole life. I have worked at TCU, have worked in business in Dallas-Fort Worth, and was not getting information, about the program to me, right? So there's all these bubbles of information that we all kind of live in where this is what we follow, and I follow these things on Twitter, and we know how exposure to the algorithm manage our exposure, and we're only going to get things that we really are highly engaged with. So my challenge is to kind of get us out of, honestly, the TCU bubble. And there's a ton of, going on at TCU. So even breaking out of that and getting into businesses and organizations, companies that are new to this area that don't know about us. And so that's really my charge too, is not only promoting the program, but promoting EMBA, but just the graduate programs, the Neeley School, to all of these companies that have come in. So from my background in working with corporate partners for 20 years, that's a part of it I'm really excited about, is not just, yes, recruiting students and showing them what an amazing program this is going to be, but the ones that come to us organically, but really going out and, hitting the streets and making sure that businesses know about the value. Because I think it has to be really organically done. I'm a team of one. But thankfully, and being connected here, I know kind of different pockets of people and places to go, and just making sure, we're the squeaky wheel. We're top of mind as many places as we can be. We're at events, and but that's kind of a new thing, that the EMBA program is a small program inside a very prestigious business school. And so we just haven't had the marketing firepower, but I'm really excited. We have an amazing student engagement team now, some dedicated marketing that people will see go out. So hopefully people will see it in the next few months, some new things coming out for sure in the fall when things kind of roll out, and see more people out talking about it. So
yeah, that's really good stuff. And I do think that the program grows better with brand, the more outside the TCU bubble.
Yes.
People coming in. You and I talked about that some last Friday, right? Is because it truly is, important, because then one is bringing them here. So it's interesting dynamic I learned about medical schools and residencies was there is a significantly, and I can't remember what the percentage is, so I won't quote the percentage, but it's a pretty significantly high percentage of those doctors that will settle in the area that they do their residency in, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So if you have folks that are coming from all over the U.S. in for class weekends every other weekend, right, there might be a good chance that, let's say they are CEO of a company or own a company or whichever, or on their way up, so forth, right? Going, hey, I need to really open my eyes to maybe moving my company to Fort Worth.
That's right.
Right? And then one of the other advantages that I think you'll definitely have is corporate has its own language, right?
For sure.
And I've learned this because I don't know what the language is, right? I know government language, I know marine language, which has 4-letter words every other word.
So corporate.
I know entrepreneur language, business owner language. I understand. MBA language, I understand a lot of languages, but being around folks that were indoctrinated, how do you say that word? Indoctrinated in corporate life, unless you learn to speak that corporate language, you're going to be left behind, right? So you having the ability to speak that corporate language, I think will give an advantage too, because someone like me walks in and tries to penetrate the corporate language thing. It would be like me speaking Mandarin to you right now. You'd be like, man, I have no idea what this guy's talking about. I need to get him out of here. But to be able to go in and speak same language, I think that certainly helps move the needle along the way.
Yeah,
right?
I'm hoping so. And you're right, how they're structured, who those decision makers and influencers are in those corporate companies that will care about that, right? That HR teams and continuing education and people like that, and hiring managers, right? So not just sending us students, but hiring, right? I mean, that's part of the network of being at the Neeley School too. So you're right. A lot of them just haven't been touched, I don't think, about, what the value they know about TCU. Obviously, athletics is our, the front porch for sure. And certainly the Neeley School is another big part of that. But really knowing, starting that relationship. And like I said, that's why I've been in sales my whole life. I love the relationship and meeting people and seeing and how I can help them. So I'm excited. There's so much growth here, so many new companies, so many young companies. And young entrepreneurs that, again, I know are going to bring amazing things to our future cohorts across the programs.
So, and I know you're excited about a lot of things in this role now, this different role, not new role.
Yeah.
Not new person, different person.
Yeah.
Is there one thing, and it may not be, but is there one thing that gets you more excited than anything else? Is there like something that's like that? This is the burning globe, and I got like 50 things I'm excited about, but this one thing is really what I'm excited about.
Oh wow, I'm excited to. I get excited talking to the students for sure. So, in the new role, in the different role, this is. Because I've heard it so transformative, I'm looking so forward to just hearing more of those stories, sitting in some of the classes, and watching the journeys of the people that are on it, like yourself, and obviously hearing it about it. But now, like I've had a few interviews this week, like I get to start with that person from where they are now and watch what's going to happen. And to me, I'm an experiential, social person. I've done kind of the same thing with my interns that were my interns 20 years ago or 15 years ago, and now I've watched them go through their journey. I'm going to get to do that again with people, but on a different scale. So I'm really excited to go on the journey with these new students that I'm starting with. I've met them from the beginning. I've heard where they are. They made this decision and get to watch what happens from here, and that's going to be awesome. So I'm excited about that.
That's and if I didn't say it the other day, congratulations on your role here.
Thank you.
Right,
yeah, I'm thrilled.
I mean,
I'm just
better you
like
than
you
me.
Said, lucky. Thanks. Yeah. Don't worry, I'll be calling you. Like you said, lucky is when I announced this role on social media this week, and people were like, "This is perfect!" Like, oh my gosh, you couldn't have created a better role, a better marriage of the corporate partnership experience you have. And obviously TCU, but, and working with people and the relationships, like I couldn't have created a more perfect one. And it came to me from someone, inside. I was like, well, I have higher ed experience, but not, really in that arena, but it couldn't be more perfect. So I'm excited.
That's exciting. So let's go back to 20-year-old Traci. Let's say you opened a time capsule and there was a note card saying, hey, I'd be willing to listen to future Traci, jump in a time machine, come back and tell me one thing that I would either do or not do, that I would carry forward. I'd be willing to listen to that one thing, because we know 20-year-old self wouldn't listen to current self, or else we'd be further along in life anyways. But if there was that one thing, what would you go back and tell 20-year-old self?
Okay, I'm thinking do or not do. I would say act more. Act on things more. There were a few opportunities that I didn't act on, that I was hesitant, that I didn't know enough, I didn't have the confidence in people around me. They were some kind of singular ideas, and literally like 1 or 2 years later, someone did it. And it was like this widely successful thing, and I was like, and not that it was a new idea, and there are no new ideas, but the action on something, like you said, it's already later than you think. And what would have been the downside? Oh, I tried it. I mean, they weren't like major, life-changing at that point, especially at that point, like young, but act on things, have that confidence in yourself. If it's what I have learned, if it's burning, like you said, it's just burning entrepreneurship or burning, this, if it keeps at you, there's a purpose for that. I completely believe the universe revolves around manifesting what you're supposed to be doing. And it's just going to keep at you until you do it. It's like the lesson's not going to go away until you correct it. It's the same thing. Like something's going to keep at you. So just act on it. Do it. Same thing I tell my son. Like just go for it.
What do you think, Gage? What's our record now? She's our 90th episode.
Oh.
That we've recorded total. No. Where were we at? 89, 90, something like that. 90 that we've recorded. No same answer so far. on that question.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
What?
It's going to happen.
That's a great list to
Oh, man.
share.
Oh, Aaron, my
Wow.
producer you met, one of the things we joke around is maybe we ought to relabel the show. What would you say 20-year-old self? I mean, we'd have at least 90 episodes out of that. So people want to
That's
learn
great.
more about TCU Executive MBA and the other graduate programs at Neeley.
Yes.
Where do they go to find you? How do they get in touch with you?
So the website address is neeley.tcu.edu. And the grad programs page will be on there, or you can enter, you can Google graduate programs at TCU, and you're gonna hit our page and learn all about our programs. Like I said, we have working professionals, part-time, brand new online MBA, and then of course the executive MBA for that level. But that's where they go. They can find me. You can Google Traci Larrison, and you'll find me too on there. The internet is a wonderful thing. But yeah, TCU grad programs. All kinds of options. I would love. The great thing is, if you haven't been on campus, some people say I've been to TCU. No, you haven't. If you haven't been to Neeley, it's a different experience. You got to come see it. So I would love to have anybody over and take a tour, give them more information.
And if you were driving down the road and you didn't have a chance to write all that down as usual, you can go to our webpage, myexperiencerealtor.com. You can click on podcasts. Scroll down to the episode with Traci Larrison here, and we'll have all these links on there for you to be able to connect with her to get in one of these great programs. Obviously, you know how I feel about them. And of course, you're looking to buy and sell real estate anywhere, anytime on the planet, go to that homepage, click Find a Trusted Professional, and we'll get you taken care of. Traci, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.